Has your vet ever criticized you, or do you feel judged by them for wanting to feed your dog a fresh or raw food diet? In recent years, some pet owners and veterinarians have really started to butt heads when it comes to their pet's nutrition. On one end, you have a really frustrated owner who feels like their voice isn't being heard and that their concerns about their pet are not being taken seriously. On the other end, you have a defeated vet who has gone through all this schooling just to have their client go to Dr. Google instead of taking their professional advice. As someone who's passionate about the raw diet and has been feeding my dogs this way for over a decade, but also works with traditional vets that are skeptical of it, I wanted to talk about it in this video. So why are so many vets against the raw diet? If we take a step back and look at it from a rational, reasonable point of view, there are some legitimate concerns. One being the lack of scientific evidence on the diet. So many owners, including myself, have criticized vets in the past for trying to push commercial kibble diets, even prescription ones such as Hill's Science Diet and Purina. Some part of the owner believes that vets have been brainwashed into thinking that the products from these companies are the healthiest choice for their animals. The problem is that these huge pet food companies have tons of resources, mostly money, which means they can have internally funded studies to back up the claims that they put on the dog food bags. In addition, these companies don't have the incentive to conduct research on fresh or raw food diets because it's in direct competition with their product and it affects their bottom line. Raw food dog companies, on the other hand, are often still small businesses and don't have the resources to fund these research and clinical trials on raw and fresh food diets. And from a veterinary standpoint, you're taught not to be convinced of something unless there's actual scientific peer-reviewed proof of it. However, with the changing landscape of more and more pet owners deciding to feed their dogs raw and fresh food diets, more studies are coming out. A few years ago, there was a study done by the University of Helsinki that compared dogs and cats fed a commercial food diet versus one that was meat-based. And the results of that study showed that there was a significant improvement in atopic dermatitis or skin conditions in the dogs and cats that were fed a meat-based diet as compared to those that were on the commercial kibble one. The second reason that your vet doesn't want you to feed a raw or fresh food diet is because of the possibility of improper nutritional balances. So while the raw diet may make sense to your vet from an ancestral standpoint, given that wolves and dogs have been eating this way for centuries, there's a lot that goes into understanding your pet's nutritional needs. And leaving it up to the pet owner to figure it out doesn't really leave your vet with a warm and fuzzy feeling. And I can't say that I blame them. Not everyone will go through the effort that you are right now by watching this video to learn what it takes to balance your dog's meals. And some don't even realize that it's necessary to do so. Commercial pet food is balanced with the vitamins and nutrients that are needed to keep your dog alive, to sustain life. Yes, it's a low bar, but hey, it works. And those same requirements need to be fulfilled from a raw or fresh food diet as well. So if somebody comes to me and says, I feed my dog a raw diet, and I go, great, what are you feeding them? And they say, oh, they get ground hamburger and a raw egg for every meal. I'm gonna be horrified. In case you're wondering, this is not balanced. So oftentimes from the vet's perspective, it's just easier to say no when a client brings up feeding a dog raw or fresh food than it is to hope that the client is actually going to educate themselves and then implement the education on how to balance these meals. If you're interested in learning more about how to get started feeding your dog a raw or fresh food diet, consider joining my email newsletter. It's completely free and I even give you my essential dog digestion guide checklist just for signing up. The link is in the description below and I'd love to have you as a member of our pack. The third reason that your vet doesn't want you to feed raw or fresh food is because of the very real risk of bacterial infection. And this is mostly from salmonella from handling raw meat. However, I do want to point out that this risk is much more increased for the pet owner than the pet or specifically dog themselves. Dog systems have evolved over the centuries to be able to handle the types of strains of bacteria that are found in raw meat. Human systems have not. And there absolutely are bacterial risks when preparing raw meat. And if you don't have common sense, which tends to be in short supply these days, it can lead to you and others in your household getting very sick. So a vet doesn't want to give you the okay to feed this type of way and then have you come back and say that you got sick, your dog got sick, your kid got sick. That's just added liability for them. And teaching someone what to do and what not to do when handling raw meat can be a large ask for vets that are already understaffed, overworked, and underpaid. So for them, the risks of recommending these types of diets just don't outweigh the benefits. Bottom line, when it comes down to it, most conventional vets just don't want to deal with the risks involved. So here's my advice to pet owners. The vet is not your enemy. They're the ones that you should trust with your pet's overall health and wellness. So instead of blocking everything they say out and getting really defensive right away, you can try to explain your position, try to explain your reasoning, show that you're balancing your pet's meals, maybe even take in the recipe or a spreadsheet that you're keeping, or even just a notepad of what you're feeding, how much, and when. And if all else fails, you can find another vet. Or you can also check out a holistic vet who may be a little more apt to consider this type of feeding. And because I know they're difficult to find, I'm going to put a link in the video description to a database where you can search for holistic vets that are close to you. I can't guarantee that you'll find one super close, but it is a good resource to have. You can even try to call them and even do like a telehealth type appointment. And my advice to vets: the raw diet is becoming ever more popular, and while it is still fairly new when compared to commercial dog food diets, it does offer the pet a lot of health benefits, and so it may be a good idea to investigate it from a personal standpoint to familiarize yourself with it more, to better advise your client one way or the other. And of course, if you see them doing something that would harm their pet, tell them. But don't just tell them, explain it to them, show it to them, teach them. And again, I realize vets are understaffed, underpaid, and overworked. And so if you don't have the capability to provide this education, then refer them to someone who does, such as a canine nutritionist. Because even I know that an unbalanced raw diet is worse than a balanced, low-quality kibble. At the end of the day, you and your vet just really need to work together as a team for the benefit of your pet's health. That's the ultimate goal, right? We all want our dogs and pets to live longer, healthier, happier lives. So there's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but I do truly believe that having rational, reasonable discussions with one another and presenting your case with facts and figures, and not just beliefs or something you heard from Dr. Google, that your vet can be persuaded to see that a raw and fresh food diet can actually be very beneficial for your pet. If you enjoyed this video and are interested in learning more about feeding a raw or fresh food diet, I think you'll be really interested in this video that I'll link up here. It's about what I call nature's perfect dog food, so you can check that out. In addition, please hit that like button, consider subscribing, and hit the bell icon so you're always notified when I post another video. I upload videos every Saturday and sometimes even during the week. And don't forget, dogs are the best.